Good morning, Moray Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Chaf Dalid Amud Alif, 6 lines up from the wide lines, the middle wide lines, and today's Amud is being learned for Hatzlacha of the situation in Eretz Yisrael, for Refuah Shlema of all the Niftza'im, all the wounded people. Today's Amud is also learned for Zchut of Yusha ben Diana, Yal bat Rivka, Menashe ben Asi. Today's Amud is also learned the Yilui Nishmat, Menashe ben Yaakov, and Sadaf Simcha bat Faribati la Eden, Avraham ben Esther, Farzaneh Diana bat Victoria, and the Yilui Nishmat, all of those soldiers that have been fallen soldiers in past week. Hashem Yikum Damam, Amen. So we are discussing this. Today is going to be a journey through Tanakh of the Psukim who indicate korbanot that have been brought or bought and taken from Goyim to be brought in Beit HaMikdash. Because, remember, the last discussion that we started was Shita of Rabbi Eliezer in Masechet Para, in Machloket Rabbi Eliezer v'Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer holds he cannot bring Para Aduma from Goyim. He cannot buy Para Aduma from Goyim. Then the Gemara said in the Shita, within the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer, perhaps that's not just the Isur by Korban, by Para Aduma, by the red heifer, but it is a general blanket Isur by all of the Korbanot. No Korban you could buy from the Goyim. That's what the Gemara said. The Gemara is going to go back and forth, traveling through Tanakh, trying to ask question after question after question from places that you see we did actually do dealings with the Goyim when it came to Korbanot. Goyim brought Korbanot. We got from the Goyim. Goyim sent Korbanot. All of those are things that we will discuss in our Gemara. So, says the Gemara, Yativ Rav Ami v'Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha sat together. Akilat Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. They sat together by the door, by the chaser of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Patach Chad Minahu v'Amar. One of them said, now they're talking and learning, and one of them says, well, V'chen haya Rabbi Eliezer posel b'chol hakorbanot kulan. This that you say, Rabbi Eliezer, did not just disqualify Para Aduma from the Goyim, the red heifer, but it's by all the Korbanot that you cannot buy from the Goyim. So says the Gemara, Patach idach binahu va'amar. The other one says, it's again the discussion between Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. One of them says, Rabbi Eliezer held it's asur by all. The other one says, well, my otivule chavroi Rabbi Eliezer. When he said such a thing, what did they ask him? You know what they asked him? Kol tzon kedari kavtzulach. It says over there that the tzon of the goyim are going to also be brought for you for korbanot. So it's a pasuk talking about la'atid lavo, and there it says in Yeshaya Perek Samech, Kol son kedari kavtzulach ele nevayot yesharatunech ya'alu al ratzon mizbechi ubet tifarti afaer. The goyim will be bringing this korbanot and will be going up on my mizbeach, says Hashem leratzon. It will be amazing. So you see, the goyim are going to be bringing tons of korbanot, and it's going to be amazing in front of Hashem leratzon al mizbechi. So says the Gemara, how do you deal with that? If you are choshesh that the goyim are involved with bestiality and that will become asur because you cannot bring a korban that has been subject to that, so then how can you allow the goyim to bring korbanot? They asked this to Rabbi Eliezer. So says the Gemara, that's not a problem. Amar Rabbi Eliezer answers, so that's no problem. Kulam gerim gerurimem. Because all of them will be gerim gerurim. You remember what gerim gerurim is? We had this sugya earlier on in Daf Bet, Daf Gimal, when we spoke about La'atid Lavo, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds the Sefer Torah, so to speak, in his lap, and it says, whoever has done this, come and get his schar, and all the goyim come rushing, the Edom and the Paras, all of them say, oh, we did everything that we did it because of the Torah, and so on and so forth, right? And Hashem laughs at them, he gives them a last chance, and then the Gemara says, well, in La'atid Lavo, we don't even accept Gerim in the time of Shlomo Melech, right? In the time of David Melech, Shlomo Melech, Avdei Shlomo, we didn't accept Gerim. And the Gemara answers, says they were Gerim Gerurim. Even though we don't accept them, La'atid Lavo, we don't accept Gerim because, it's going to be clear, everyone is going to want to become Gerim. Right? In the time of Esther Mordechai, Shlomo Melech, Avdei Shlomo, we did not accept. So Gemara says, but there's all these Gerim there. So no, they were Gerim Gerurim. Gerim Gerurim means from themselves. It was not a legitimate Bedin necessarily. They found their own private Bedin somewhere and they became Gerim and they started acting like the Jews because they wanted to become Jewish. That's Gerim Gerurim. So says Rabbi Eliezer, La'atid Lavo, well, you think you're going to have Hezbollah and Hamas, no, they're all going to become Gerim Gerurim, right? If anything was left by then from them. So there's going to be Gerim Gerurim. All they're going to want to become Gerim. And therefore, once they become Gerim Gerurim, that they're acting like Jews, guess what is one of the 7 mitzvot of Bnei Noach? Even if they would become frum goyim, as we will see later in the Gemara, they can't do bestiality. Certainly, if they become Gerim Gerurim, who are keeping the Taryag mitzvot, they're not going to be doing that. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer answered. He said that pasuk in Yeshaya Perek Samech is not an issue to my shita. Right now, they are doing all kinds of things with their animals. When La'atid Lavo, they become Jews. Even though that the gerut may not be legitimate, but they're going to be keeping Taryag mitzvot, hence you could bring korbanot from their animals, no problem. So says the Gemara, first wider lines. Amar Rav Yosef, Maikara, how do you know that they are going to become Gerim Gerurim le'atid lavo? That in future they are going to all become Gerim Gerurim? Says the Gemara, the pasuk from Sefania. The pasuk says there, Ki az epoch el amim safa brura likro kulam b'shem Hashem. Then, talking again, a reference to La'atid Lavo, I will turn to the goyim safa brura, a clear language, likro kulam b'shem Hashem. They're all going to be calling in the name of Hashem, all of them. Le'ovdo shechem echad, all going to serve Him together. Right? So you see, everyone is going to serve Hashem. No Avodah Zarah is going to be there. Everyone's going to be Safa Echad with Varim Echadim. One language serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in unison. So says the Gemara, wait a second, who says, Amale, Abaye tells him, Amar Abaye, V'dilma ma'avodat kochavim u'dahadur. Who says that they're going to be careful in bestiality and other isurim, maybe only that they're not going to do Avodah Zarah. Because the Pasuk says, they're going to be calling the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means, no Avodah Zarah. That's what it means. But who says that they're going to be keeping the rest of the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach or the Taryag Mitzvot? Maybe, the only thing that Sfanya is prophesizing is that there's going to be no Avodah Zarah. Everyone is going to come to a clear recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe that's what it means. He answers, says, no, he can't say. Rabbi Yosef says, the pasuk finishes that they're all going to be serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in unison. What does that mean? That means us and them, it's going to be no difference. Whatever we keep, they're going to be keeping. Which means everyone's going to be keeping Taryag mitzvot. Gerim Gerurim. And that's the source of Rabbi Eliezer said, everyone is going to be Gerim Gerurim. Okay. Says the Gemara. Now, this is actually very interesting because what does La'atid Lavo mean? Is this Yemot HaMashiach? Yes, no. Rambam was asked and wrote a lot about this. The comparison of La'atid Lavo as terminology used for Yemot HaMashiach versus Olam Haba, and what's going to be in Yemot HaMashiach. Of course, famously Rambam writes that there's no difference between nowadays and Yemot HaMashiach, aside from the fact that you won't have Shibud Malchuyot, right? There will be no Hamas attacks and no worries and so on and so forth. You're just going to sit and learn Torah. There's no difference between Yom HaMashiach and right now. That's what Rambam writes. But nevertheless, you go through, he himself writes, it's almost impossible to know what exactly is going to happen. The different midrashim, different agatas. Here you go and you pick jewels basically based on what's going to be happening in the time of Latid Lavo. One of the things the Gemara is saying over here is that everybody is going to be Avodah Shechem Echad based on Pasuk and Sfanya. Everyone's going to be actually keeping Taryag Mitzvot. They're going to be Gerurim based on Shitat Rabbi Eliezer. Says the Gemara. Rav Papa Matni Hachi. This that we just mentioned is the way Rav Papa understands the Gemara, and he says the back and forth between Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha the way we just had it right now. Rav Zvid Matni Hachi. Rav Zvid has the story slightly different, and this is how he says it. V'tarvayu Amri. He says that yes, they were sitting by the door of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha were sitting together. And they were learning, but it was not a machloket between them, one saying one thing, the other saying the other thing. They both said it like this in the beginning. Tarvaihu Amri, both of them said together, that Rabbi Eliezer not just invalidated the paradu, that was taken from Goyim, but he said that every single korban is pasul from Goyim. And then they said themselves, Tarvayu Amri, they both said, Umay otivu lechavroi Rabbi Eliezer. You know what the friends of Rabbi Eliezer in Bet Midrash asked him? They right away asked him from the pasuk in Yeshaya Perek Samech. They said, well, the pasuk says, Kol son kedari kaptzulach, that all the goyim are going to bring all these korbanot. Yalu leratzon mizbechi. They're going to go up leratzon on the mizbech of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, and that's going to be the material used for korbanot brought by goyim in the time of Latid Lavo, ubet tifarti afaer, and that's an amazing thing for Hakadosh Baruch Hu to do. So what are you saying, Rabbi Eliezer? And Rabbi Eliezer answered the same answer we had in the Gemara before. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, he answers them, kulam gerim gerurim hem Latid Lavo, that all of them are going to be self-appointed gerim, so to speak, from private batei din, and they're going to be keeping all of the Taryag mitzvot. We're going to have Ger Toshav coming up right now. Ger Toshav is not keeping Taryag Mitzvot. He's going to be keeping the 7 Noahide laws. The reason he doesn't say that, of course, we say in the Gemara that Le'ovdo Shechem Echad is mashma that they're going to be keeping all Taryag Mitzvot together with the Jews, right? So says the Gemara. Does that answer the question?
Well, I mean, before Latid Lavo, doesn't Kuli Amalo Pligi say you can buy an animal from a Ger Toshav, or is it Dafka? We're
going to discuss that a little bit later in the Gemara as the Sugya develops. Says the Gemara, first wide line, 4 lines up. Umaykra, and what's the pasuk? Yazeh poch elamim safa berura likro kulam b'shem Hashem. That's the same pasuk in Sfanya that we had before. Matkif la Rav Yosef, and then Rav Yosef asks this question. It says, how can you bring a pasuk from Sfanya? Maybe that is talking about only not doing Avodah Zarah, that everyone is going to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And of course the answer comes to that. Abaya answers Rav Yosef, Le'ovdo Shechem Echad Ketiv, that at the end of that pasuk in Sefanya Perek Gimal, says that they're going to all call in unison to the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to serve Him together in unison. That means that us and them are going to be serving Hashem the same way, which indicates that they're going to all be keeping Taryag Mitzvot. Hence, what Rabbi Eliezer said, that Latid Lavo kulam gerim gerurim hem. Everyone is going to become geret tzedek of, again, even though that the legitimate batei din are not going to accept that type of gerut. Again, that's a sugya in Yevamot of when and how you accept converts and when not. But nevertheless, they're going to be self-appointed converts, taking a small bet din and converting themselves to keeping Taryag Mitzvot and actually keeping Taryag Mitzvot. So says the Gemara.
What's the difference from what we just said? Why are we doing this again?
No, it's just the story has a, whether or not Rav Ami and Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, they are arguing back and forth, or they're both saying this thing together. It's just the way it happened. The Gemara is actually very specific to to do the quotation of what happened in a very specific way, because it has nafkamina later on, what Rav Ami holds, what Rav Yitzchak Nafcha holds, and this is how the Torah Sheba'al Peh was. In order to keep Torah Sheba'al Peh in a legitimate and reliable way, you have to know exactly who said what. You find many times in the Gemara that when someone quotes a chain of command of a certain memra, certain halakha that has been said, so and so said the name of so and so, and one of them is off, Rabbi Yochanan would give a very hard time to his Talmidim. He said, what kind of quotation is this? You got to get your people straight. You can't just quote people like that. Again, because the legitimacy of Torah Sheba'al Peh is kept in such way that the chain of command is extremely important. So says the Gemara. Metive. Now we're going to go through Tanakh, right? In other words, now we have this Rabbi Eliezer who holds you can't get any korbanot from the goyim, and they want us to seriously. Let's take a quick travel through Tanakh and examine this shita. They asked in the Bet Midrash, "Vayomer Moshe gam ata titem biyadenu zvachim ve'olot," that Moshe Rabbeinu tells Paro, when Paro says, Paro wanted to keep the Jews there, and he was being blasted, makkah after makkah, plague after plague, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu would harden his heart. At some point, he said, okay, you guys go, but only the Scharim. You only want to bring korbanot. Who's going to bring korbanot? The man, adult, right? So you go, but your children and your animals should stay. Or the next stage, only your animals should stay. This way he wanted to kind of like have an anchor that make sure that they're not going to just go and flee the land and not come back. They're going to come back for their flock and for the animals. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, hey, not only are we going to take our animals, but you're going to also give us animals to take for korbanot, because we don't know what Hashem is going to ask us. Maybe He's going to ask us for millions of korbanot. So we're going to take all of our animals. And not only that, you're also going to give us animals. Right? And this actually was prophetic, because at the end of Makat Bechorot, Paro says, "Kasher dibartem ubrachtem gamot." He says, not only you should go right now, and everything that you have should go and take my stuff also with you, right? So you see, it's not just the plea of Moshe Rabbeinu, but it's actually something that happened. So it says, how in the world can you have Egyptian animals? Egypt was the hotbed of Arayot, right? Like the Pasuk says in Yechezkel, Perek Chaf Aleph, I think, Pasuk Chaf Gimel, there it says, Besar Chamorim Besaram, Vezirmat Susim Zirmatam, they were Shtufe Zima. Actually, the Maharal has a beautiful piece in the beginning of Gevurot Hashem, speaking about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to develop his nation in the worst society in the world. Like imagine raising a Jewish society, Jewish community in Los Angeles, right? That's like in San Francisco. You have the worst place. You choose the hotbed of Arayot to bring up Am Kadosh, and Maharal writes that's derech davar. As things are affected from their opposites. A very deep and thought-provoking Maharal in the beginning of Gevurot Hashem. But be as it may, Mitzrayim was the worst place of Arayot. So if you're telling me that the Goyim are Chashudim al Arayot with bestialities, so the animals from the Egyptian society should be the biggest psul for Korban. How in the world are you saying that we're going to get Korbanot from you to bring for Hashem? How's that kasher? Says the Gemara, Kodem Matan Torah Shani. Easy answer. Before Matan Torah it was mutar. This isur of an animal that has been affected not being kasher lekorban is only after Matan Torah, because we learn it after all from a pasuk, mina be'ema, mina bakar, mina son. That's where we learn it from, and that's a pasuk in the Torah. Before Matan Torah, that was not a prohibition. Fine, that was easy. Says the Gemara, Tashema, Vaikach Yitro choten Moshe, ola uzbachim le'elokim. Yitro comes, joins Bnei Israel after Yitziat Mitzrayim, and what's one of the first things that he does? He brings korbanot. He brings ola uzvachim le'elokim. How in the world are you accepting ola uzvachim from Yitro? Right? Now, you have to understand that the Gemara in Masechet Zvachim has an entire machloket whether or not Yitro came after Matan Torah or before Matan Torah. It becomes actually machloket Rashi and Ramban. Is in a general machloket. A general machloket, do we say en mukdamu me'uchar b'Torah, or do we not say that? Right? Rashi holds across the board en mukdamu me'uchar b'Torah. There are many times in Chumash that something that happened chronologically earlier in the timeline is mentioned later, and vice versa. The Ramban disagrees very strongly with that. Each one of them have a lot of ra'ayot for themselves, but this is something that in general, as a rule, exists between the Rishonim. Again, the Ibn Ezra holds like Rashi. Ibn Ezra brings multiple different ra'ayot for en mukdamu me'uchar b'Torah, and Ramban very vehemently disagrees with all of those, and he holds that unless it says it, generally speaking, you don't assume that the timeline of the Torah is messed with. If the Torah says it in that chronology, that's the timeline of the chronology of what happened. But that is a general rule. Here, you actually have specific machloket in Masechet Zvachim, in Daf Kuftet Zayin Amud Aleph, machloket whether or not Yitro came before Matan Torah or Yitro came after Matan Torah. So says the Gemara, well, you just told me that Paro was Mutar was okay because Paro was before Matan Torah. Well, if you go according to Manda Amar in Masechet Zvachim Kuftet Zayin, that Yitro also came before Matan Torah, Chazaku Baruch. That makes sense why Yitro could bring his own korbanot over there. But if you say Yitro came after Matan Torah, then how in the world is Yitro bringing korbanot, right? Yitro was Kohen Midian, he was a goy. So El Alamanda Amar Yitro La'achar Matan Torah. If you say that he came after Matan Torah, Ma'ika Lememar, then what was the heter for him to bring korban? El Yitro Misrael Zavan. Well, he said you think that these people who travel and they bring their whole house with them, right? And then the more sophisticated travelers, they only come with a little bag, and they bring a lot of cash or a lot of good credit cards, and they buy whatever they want. Well, you think he brought his korbanot with him? He came there and he bought it from the Jews. He didn't come with a bunch of sheep and a whole flock. He bought it from the Jews. Says the Gemara, Tashema. Another question. What is the question there? The first appointment of Shaul, well, not the first, but certainly the main appointment of Shaul was to kill out Amalek, to defeat the nation of Amalek, and he unfortunately failed that mission in a tremendous disaster. He was told to kill everyone, and he didn't. He left Agag alive. Agag actually, within the time of being captured and killed by Shemuel Hanavi himself, he fathered a son who later became the ancestor to Haman. What do we say? Haman Agagi. Haman was a direct descent of Agag. When did that happen? That happened because Shaul failed to kill Agag, right? And he also left some of the Metafason, Rabakar. He left some of the animals, the oxen and the sheep as well. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Shmuel, I regret having made Shaul king, and he comes and he confronts Shaul, and he says, whoa, what is the voice that I'm hearing over here? You brought this cows and this sheep, and he says, well, I brought them to be korbanot. The language of the pasuk is Vayomer Shaul ma'Amaleki. The people brought this from Amaleki. Asher chamal ha'am al metav hason v'abakar. The nation, the soldiers had compassion to keep the best of the animals to bring them as korbanot. Le'ma'al zevoach le'Hashem Elokecha, to bring them as zvachim for Hashem. So of course that was a mistake, and Shmuel confronted Shaul, and he went on to kill Agag. We know this story, how that this became basically Kara Hashem Mamlechut Yisrael Ma'alecha. That was the moment that Shmuel told Shaul, Hashem ripped away the kingship of Am Yisrael from you and gave it to someone that's better than you. That's the moment that Hashem basically put away Shaul and chose David HaMelech, even though that for 6+ years later, still Shaul was in the palace and David was chased by him to be killed. But that's the moment that it happened. Now, the Gemara says, but wait a second. Shaul knew the halacha. How in the world can you bring korbanot? It's not kasher to bring those korbanot. If you're choshesh, according to Rabbi Eliezer's shita, Shaul was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. How in the world can you bring korbanot from the animals of the Amalekim? Says the Gemara, my metav de me metav. The Gemara gives an answer which is interesting. It says, it was not really the animals themselves. They sold the best. They took the best of the cows and the best of the sheep. They sold them, and with the money they wanted to bring korbanot. Not that they actually wanted to bring the korbanot, because those animals would be pasul. The Gemara asks the obvious question. The Gemara says, wait a second. If you're telling me that they're bringing the actual cows and oxen and sheep, so it makes sense why they brought the best of the best, right? But if you're selling them and using the money, who cares to get the best? There's money. The old $100 bill is just as good as a new one, right? Why? Why do you have to sell the best? What's the difference with best? It says, no, that's only for a practical business standpoint. If you have the best, you can sell it right away. You don't have to wait to sell them, and that's what they did. That's the answer the Gemara gives. Tashma, the Gemara says, another pasuk from David HaMelech. The interaction between David and Aravna. Who was Aravna? Aravna was a Ger Yevusi, I believe he was. He had a massive field that later on actually became the makom of the mikdash. So it says the pasuk, when David HaMelech counted the Jews unlawfully, and Yoav tried to warn him, so you can't count the Jews, right? You have to do it, not nu kofer nafsham. You can't just count. And David HaMelech insisted that they should do it, and they did it, and there was a magefa. Thousands of people were dying, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu told David, okay, the way you do it is, you go to the field of Aravna, this goy, and you bring korbanot, and so on. So David HaMelech approaches him, and this guy says, I'm going to give you everything for free. Take the land for free, take my bakar, my cows for free, and take the wood that you're going to use as fuel, as fire, for free, and do whatever you need to do for Hashem. And David HaMelech said, I'm not going to bring free korbanot to Hashem. He bought the entire thing from him with tremendous price, and that's the rest of the story, how the plague stopped, right? But this is smack in the middle of that story, in the conversation between Aravna and David HaMelech. Vayomer Aravna el David. He tells David HaMelech, Yikach v'yal Adoni HaMelech, my master the king should take whatever you need. Hatov be'enav, whatever is fit in your eyes. Re'eh bakar le'olam, and see the cow that I have over here, the oxen for korban olah, ve'hamorigim v'chlei bakar le'etzim, and use the morigim and klei bakar, the tools of attached to the cows for plowing and so on. The plow, use those for etzim, for wood, to bring korban. You want to bring korban? All yours. My land is yours. My bakar is yours. My everything is yours. And David HaMelech said, no, I'm not doing it for free. He bought it and he did it. So says in Gemara, wait a second. How in the world his bakar is a goy? How in the world is his bakar kasher for korban? According to Rabbi Eliezer. You see, that's a powerful question. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman, Aravna ger toshav haya. Aravna was a goy, but he was not the regular goy. He was a ger toshav, right? That comes to answer your question. Aravna was a ger toshav. He kept Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, and the Noahide laws include also a prohibition against bestiality. So therefore, his animals were kasher for korban, even according to Rabbi Eliezer. Says the Gemara. By the way, once we add it, what's morigim? It says, take the bakar, take the morigim and kle bakar. What's morigim? So the Gemara says, morigim amar ulam, mitashel turbil. It's a mitashel turbil, but that doesn't really help a lot because you don't know what that is. My mitashel turbil, says the Gemara, it's Iza, the kurkesa, the daishan. It's a fat, thick, and wide piece of wood that on the bottom of it has been, you made charitzim on the bottom, so it has teeth basically, it has sharp edges all around, not just around, but all on the bottom side of it is all with teeth basically, and they will put that down. It's a heavy piece of wood, wide and fat, and they would attach it to the cow, going for threshing basically on top of the produce in order to shell out the chaff from the mutz from the grain. And that's serious amount of wood. So it tells him, take the morigim and klil bakar, all the wood that you have over here, and just use it for korban. So says the Gemara, Amar Yosef, my kara. What's the pasuk that this wooden piece is called morigim? Hine samticha lemorak charutz chadash. Hashem says, I made you like a morak. Charutz chadash, like a new moreg like this that we just mentioned, bal pipiot, with sharp teeth, tadush harim v'tadok, and you will smash the mountains and flatten the hilltops, kamotz tasim. Okay, that's the poetic language that was said by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Yeshaya Navi when he was appointed as being the Navi. So it says, the Gemara.
Why does he need that for sacrifice?
Well, you need you need wood to burn the korban olah, right? Now the Gemara is going to ask. We're going to start this. The Gemara is going to ask the very powerful question. The Gemara says, "Wait a second. We know a korban that was brought from the goyim that you don't have any of these answers. Mamash goyim, pelishtim." And that's the story of David HaMelech. Is a time, again, right before David HaMelech, when Jews lost a battle soundly to Pelishtim, and the Aron of HaKadosh Baruch Hu was taken captive. And then finally Pelishtim sent back the Aron with 2 mother cows and a new chariot, and this came automatically to Eretz Israel, and they used those 2 cows for korban. You don't have any of the heterim above that we mentioned in there, and we know that they brought them as korban. That's very surprising, which is something that Be'ezrat Hashem will discuss in the shiur upcoming.
Nice sneak peek at the end. That was